Hey guys, Jaryd Krause, host of the Buying Online Businesses podcast. And in this episode today, we get to speak to Mark Whitman from Content Elect. Now, Mark has bought websites, he's sold websites, he's scaled websites, and he's built really, really good teams in his entrepreneurial journey. So in this episode, we talk about some of the sites he's bought and what he's actually learnt from those, which has been really good. And then also we talk about his business Content Elect and how he's helping people scale their sites with really good content. And then for those of us who are wanting to build our own sites using and doing the content ourselves in-house, we talk about a bit of a strategy on how you can do that as well through creating your own content. So if you're looking at buying a website and scaling it, especially if it is at one of the content websites, and also how to be a really good entrepreneur and operator and owner, then make sure you don't miss out on this episode, because there's so many little hidden gems in there that I actually found a lot of value in myself personally, and I'm sure you're going to as well. So check it out. Today's episode is brought to you by Investors Club. Investors Club is a paid members only marketplace for serious buyers interested in proven businesses that aren't listed anywhere else, because sellers sign a 2-month exclusivity agreement to only list with the membership. Now, there's also no purchase fees or commission, meaning the seller nor the buyer ever pay commission in any deal. Each listing has next level metrics to make due diligence far less time consuming, making it quicker for you to seal the deal. With a membership, you have access to a no fee escrow service, and they have great Q&A support available for both buyers and sellers. I'm a member myself, and a lot of thought and effort has gone into this service. However, there are a limited amount of seats available for this membership, so go and check them out at their URL, which is investors.club. That's investors.club. Hey Mark, and hey everybody, welcome back to another episode of the Buying Online Businesses podcast. Mark, very grateful that you decided to join us today, and thanks for coming on.
Thank you so much for having me, Jaryd.
So previously, we just before we hit the record button, you told me a little bit about you, and I'd already gone away and checked out some of your stuff, and congrats on what you've already done so far. It's absolutely amazing. For those who are listening, they may have never heard of you before, but you're from Content Elect. You've bought and built many sites and sold some sites as well. I wanted to ask initially, because everybody here is looking to buy their first site or scale their first site, what sort of led you to the idea of buying versus always building? Like in these cases where you did buy some sites, what sort of led you to that?
Yeah, initially I was very much of a build mindset, and that's just because I've been doing this for a number of years. But around I think I bought my first site around 2015, 2016. And previously I'd always built and just thought that was a faster, better way to do it. And I felt I kind of had controlled what was on the site from the get-go and didn't have to deal with any legacy issues. But quite quickly discovered around 2015, 2016 that it's really difficult to launch a brand new domain and kind of get it ranking and making money in a reasonable time frame. And that has subsequently become more and more true. So I think by 2020 to buy a domain and actually start getting traction via search engines is a big ask and can take months, if not years, to kind of crack it in the search engines with a new domain. So yeah, that's why I started buying, I guess. Just kind of leapfrog that process and speed it up.
Yeah, I find that getting more and more important the better businesses get at ranking themselves on the search engines. You're coming up with, especially if you don't have many resources or levers to pull or put like a fair bit of cash into building a site, you're coming up with a competitor that's already maybe have an in-house SEO or a SEO consultant, and you're really competing on that, and it can be quite hard. And as the internet grows, then a lot of these businesses will start to develop and mold how the search engines and to what people's problems, wants, fears, and frustrations are in terms of products too.
Yeah, I
So
mean, I think if someone has like a particular traffic channel that isn't reliant on Google, so potentially, let's say they can leverage, let's say they've got a presence on social media and can drive traffic in that way to a new domain, well, that's totally fine. But in terms of the way that I work, I'm heavily dependent on Google, and nowadays, as many of your listeners will know, the authority of the domain is super important to get that initial traction with Google. So, with a brand new domain, you've got zero authority and you've got to spend a lot of time to build that up.
yeah.
And so buying just speeds up the process, really.
Yeah, for sure. And so you did start, because you've got Content Elect for everybody listening, where you help people create content for their websites. Actually, you reached out to me because one of the people in my community that bought a site, they came and started working with you and using your products and services, which is absolutely excellent. So you built that one from scratch initially? And was that just because you had
Content Select?
Yeah, was that just because you had such a high demand and you were already starting to do that a lot, or how did that sort of evolve?
Yeah, so Content Elect's it was built on a brand new domain. And the reason why it works in that case is we're not heavily reliant on search engine traffic.
Yeah,
so
great.
we've got other means like your podcast and other promotional techniques to drive traffic to us. So yeah, it was built on a brand new domain. But in terms of some of our clients, most of them, or a good portion of our clients, are affiliate marketeers.
Using you guys as an ongoing basis.
Yeah, exactly. And key part of affiliate marketing is obviously content. And so yeah, our team is very much aligned to producing that type of content. And most of our clients have established authority domains. I think the client, the customer that you're talking about, he actually acquired a site.
It's a content site, yeah, that he bought.
Yeah, it's affiliate content site. Yeah. So yeah, it's a classic example of someone who needs content, and we provide that solution.
Yeah, that's great. And I know that you mentioned to me prior to coming on the podcast that you've learnt so much about scaling sites and building sites. And also I've noticed this for myself as well, is when I want to get to the next level, there's something that's holding me back, right? And because I'm a human being, and I have an ego, I can be quite blasé about what that actually is, and can end up pointing my finger at so many things around me. And sometimes it comes back as like a big wet fish just slapped you in the face, and you can see that, hang on, I'm the problem. I need to develop myself or get somebody that can take over that part that I'm no good at, that I thought I was good at, right? So I've seen that happen to me in my life and my businesses. And now you said you had got to some stage in some sites that you started bottlenecking. Like, what did you do to prevent that from happening with other businesses or the business that you may be in?
I mean, initially, I guess if we roll back the clock a little bit, initially in my mind, I was very much of the mindset of a solo entrepreneur, and do everything myself and be the jack of all trades. And that was great. And I learned a lot. And obviously it's cheap to do that, because I had time and I was just putting in the sweat equity to grow my business. But there came a point where I realized, one, I wasn't good at everything. And therefore I was underperforming in pretty much every area except for the areas that I thought I was, had maybe an edge. So there was that problem, but also there's just not enough time in the day. So there's no leverage to get any bigger. And so that's when I started thinking outside of this idea of just being me, and how I could build a team who could do different parts of the process to scale. And that kind of different way of thinking allowed me to kind of break out of the bottleneck, to where we are today, where I don't ever write or do any outreach, or I'm very much working in the strategic sphere or managing people and making sure that there's someone in each role that has a responsibility to get that task done, and that's allowed me to scale, really. And yeah, in terms of affiliate, where we do, from my personal portfolio, the two key things in affiliate are content and outreach, or some people term kind of building links, nasty dark space, the dark arts. And yes, so both those things, the beauty of them is they can be systemized, and people without digital skills can learn how to do both those tasks relatively quickly and do them well. So that's effectively what I set my goal to do. I was going to need to build a team, a content team and an outreach team. The way that we structured today is both our writers and our outreach team can do either or role, or they can switch between. And I actually like this is quite a new process in our business, where we've moved from a mindset where we've got content writers and an outreach team, and instead each person is responsible for a piece of content, and that piece of content includes outreach and social media activity. So they're doing the whole suite, from content ideation, keyword research, content creation, publishing, on-page SEO, outreach, and social media promotion. And then they go on to the next piece.
I love that, because for some people that haven't got a team or haven't worked with people and training, one of the things that I picked up was that, your outreach team can do the content writing and vice versa. That's really important, just in case somebody leaves or, is absent for a certain amount of time and somebody needs to pick up the slack. But I love the idea of having one piece per person, because if you get somebody to write a piece and then you send it to somebody for social media, they're not going to know what copy to put on social media, and they're going to have to read the whole thing to understand it. It just eliminates error, and also eliminates time needed to know what needs to be put in for sharing that content.
I went back and forth on it really, because there's a school of thought, like you're kind of Taylorism thought, or like the Ford factory, where each person has a role, and obviously you can potentially be more efficient doing that. But you had a valid point about one person owning the entire process is valuable. The second thing that we found is great is people get bored doing one thing, and if you give them lots of more things to do, the job becomes a lot more enjoyable. And there's many more pieces to it, and they understand the full picture. They're not just a piece in the picture. Obviously, there's a risk that they could go off and do it themselves, but we haven't had that problem. So it's been good.
I think it's understanding that need to go off and do it yourself versus doing it for somebody else is really cool as well, because if you're going to give somebody the perks and the benefits to work with you to do so, they're going to stay, because hey, being an entrepreneur is like freaking hard. Like, as you said, being a solo entrepreneur, which is really, really hard, is just, there's a lot of work that goes into it. And I advise against it. Like, coming back to the point of like coming to start doing your own stuff, like as soon as you can get people on board to help, and it doesn't need to be, I'm going to hire a content writer or a link builder or an SEO or a digital marketer. Like, even just getting, speaking to somebody who's already owning their own business, where you can bump ideas off each other, like that eliminates risk when you're buying and building a website and trying to grow it as well. And I really suggest that to everyone. Like, massive part of the reason is I built a community for people that want to buy sites, is so that they can bounce ideas off each other, because the more people in there, the stronger it gets. And I think that's really important to understand the motivation behind why some people may want to stay working versus being an entrepreneur. And, being an entrepreneur is not for everyone. It is hard. So
it's kind of like an inverse curve, right? Like, it's really difficult in the beginning. There's so many hurdles and so many challenges, and there's such a wide skill set to learn. But if you can kind of stick with it, when I think back to when I kind of started, which before this call I was saying kind of dates back to 2010, and prior to that I was employed. There's so many people I met along the journey who stopped and went back And they were probably only, maybe 12 months away from kind of breaking through. And then as you do break through and you build your skills, there comes a point where it gets a lot easier and everything gets easier. I guess that's true of any kind of skill acquisition. I think entrepreneurship is a skill acquisition, really.
Yeah, even for athletes and any success that they want to achieve, I totally agree. And some people, this is where some people I've noticed that will come so close to buying a site, and they've done like all this time looking at hundreds of businesses, and then they go and oh, this is not for me, and they feel that they just can't find the right one for them.
Right.
But the next one may be the one where they can purchase it and it already has an operations team, or already has some people doing most of the operations, where they can really lean on those people who are already in the business. And as you said, it gets a lot easier from that stage. It's an interesting one. Personally, some people in my circle feel that I'm a bit sick because I actually love the challenges and thrive off them, because yes, it's going to suck, and it does suck, and I'm pulling my hair out some stages, but I know I like to be a macro thinker on the other side of this struggle or obstacle, is that massive growth where, yes, it gets easier and it gets funner as well.
Yeah. And the rewards are just exponentially better, right?
Yeah, for sure. You put the work in, and you confidently own that you deserve the rewards. So it's fitting. So, I mean, I could talk about entrepreneurship this whole podcast and for another 3 hours, but we'll stick to the buying sites and growing them. You guys are writing a lot of content for affiliate sites and content sites. What's the most popular type of content that you guys are writing? Is it for affiliate blogs? Like, I've noticed you got sales copy that you guys do as well.
Yeah, so I mean, our business splits into two main types of customers. Our kind of bread and butter customer and heritage is with affiliate marketers, and most of those customers are Amazon associate affiliates. So it's kind of best of product reviews, best X for Y type reviews, if people know what those are. Best trekking poles for walking in the snow, or best bag for traveling overseas, or whatever. Those are really poor keywords.
Yeah. Well, I mean, I know what you mean, but that's a keyword phrase that people can use.
Yeah. So effectively, that client base are targeting Amazon associate keywords that generally are of the type that are best ofs. We also do comparison type articles. So X product versus Y product type articles, again for affiliate marketers. And then we also do some informational type content that they can blend into their commercial content. Lots of that content will be listicles. So like top 14 cities to visit, or something like that in the UK. And so that's the one client. And then the other type of client that we have now grown quite significantly and is over 50% of our business are small businesses. And I would say those kind of segment into two. You get your kind of a local small business that's doing local SEO. So like a plumber in Brisbane, or a roofer in Minnesota, who doesn't have time. Usually it's an agency that's employed us, and we produce content for them that's kind of localized. And then we've got quite a few kind of SaaS businesses, so global businesses who have blogs, and we write content for their blogs, almost kind of like blog management.
Yeah, great.
Yeah.
And this is a part of what I say to everybody that's looking at buying a content site. Like, some people I say, I hate writing. Like, I hate it and I'm no good at it. It's like, you don't need to be alone on your entrepreneurial journey, guys. Like, this is what we've been talking about for the last 10 minutes.
Well, I mean, yeah, if you're buying a site, that's a reasonable size, I don't think it's a good use of your time to be writing content.
Even if you are good.
Even if you are good, yeah. I mean, maybe editing, is a good thing. You can add a little bit more value, that additional kind of 20%, but you can get the 80% done by a writer. Personally, content central to our businesses, and I don't write at all. It's just not a good use of my time at all, and it's easier to outsource. And we get really good results because there's an element of educating the customer of how to buy content. So a lot of people will just be like, oh, I want a piece of content on this topic, which is incredibly broad. And instead of spending a bit of time just to write a more detailed brief, and you get a much better article coming out the other side. So in terms of when we onboard clients into our system, we emphasize the better the brief, the better the output, and that's worked really well for us.
Yeah, and the better they understand and the more confidence they have in you guys as well. I think it's really important is like they call it explained value, which is just education. And when people really understand where to go, what to do, or understand the whole situation, they not only become a lot more confident in the services, but they value them more as well. And that's really important because it's a different mindset shift that happens in them, and that can manifest to the results that they do achieve as well. And I know that can sound a bit woo-woo and all that sort of stuff, but I certainly believe in that, and I've seen it happen. So yeah, so a lot of people may not be able to. There are people that are buying sites that may be like 50K, and they're not going to be able to put a lot of resources into creating their own content. What sort of, like, for somebody buying a 50K to maybe even just under 100K site, what sort of content marketing strategy would you suggest they start to develop? Like some of the key things, would it be set a schedule of writing 1 to 2 posts a month or a week, and then editing and filtering out the ones that are no good to the ones that are good, keyword research? What sort of strategy would you give them?
Yeah, so I mean, it really depends on the type of website and the nature of the business model. Obviously, if let's say it's a 50K site that is an affiliate website, well, content's central to the business model. So you should be heavily invested in producing commercial content for the site and building out more reviews whilst blending in some non-commercial topics. But yeah, I mean, the process there would be to kind of think about a content calendar, as you've mentioned. Personally, I like to build out a lot of content. So I like to cover a topic in detail and just become an authority in the space. So my content calendars are big. Right? We've got hundreds of articles lined up for this first quarter, and we'll churn those out. But obviously you need decent budget to do that. So if you don't have a big budget, then you just got to prioritize on what you think you can rank. And so that's doing some keyword research and figuring out, which keywords have reasonable search volume but aren't incredibly competitive, and investing your time there. We generally don't get involved heavily on that side of the client's work. So we rely on them to come up with keywords and the content calendar. But we've got a really straightforward process once they know what content they want to acquire that content. So yeah, if it's a business that's not heavily reliant on content, then maybe just a light touch content strategy that probably goes after, again, like reasonable keywords, but potentially even more search volume, because you can invest maybe more time on individual pieces of content. So it's less of a volume play and more of a kind of high quality play. If you're a SaaS business, for example.
Yeah. Okay, great. So with the keyword research, you don't particularly do that yourself. Most of your clients go away and they do that, give you the keywords and say, I want 5 articles in this next month, or 6 or 10 or 20. Do you end up teaching them how to do the keyword research if they don't know how? How does that work?
Generally, no.
They're just onto it and they say, I want this. Yeah,
I mean, initially we did have a product where we were doing the keyword research, the content calendar, and kind of all content ideation for the site and all of that front end work. But it ends up being a ton of work for not not enough remuneration really. And if we were to kind of price it at the right level, we would probably price affiliate marketeers out of the market for us. We do that for clients who do want a white glove service, but those tend to be small businesses who have decent budget. And basically we do everything for them. So we're essentially an in-house outsourced content team for them. So we've got 3 or 4 clients like that, where they're effectively just let us manage their blog, and we do everything, which is great. It's nice. Yeah, it works well.
It's better when you have more control because you can get better results because you understand more of the moving parts there. I really agree with that. So a lot of people listening to this are like, okay, great. I've got to do my keyword research. I've got to set up a content calendar. And I mean, it's dependent. Like I suggest to everybody that is listening to ensure that they're dropping off a couple of posts or pieces of content and putting more time, energy, and resources into creating more quality ones. I definitely suggest that. I don't know how you feel about that. You're nodding your head, so I guess that's a yes. Also, what about the size of the content as well? Like I've heard, different things, 2,000 to 4,000 words or more. How many links is too many links? Should you have 1 to 2 inbound links, 1 to 2 outbound links? All of this sort of stuff. Like, what's a good
Again, I mean, we will do whatever the client wants. So if the minimum word count that you can order on our site is 500 words, which is too small for most websites. But if someone wants 500 words, we would, and for SEO, it's on the lower end, definitely. But so we don't enforce a word count level, and we sell on a per word basis. So if you wanted a 10,000 word article, we would write it for you. I can only give you how I would personally, in terms of affiliate, how I would personally build content. And in terms of length, I'm generally looking at around 2,000 words. Again, that can wax and wane depending on the competition, but that seems to be kind of a sweet spot. It could be a bit more than that, or a bit less. I used to do a little bit longer form, and I just find the market's moved a little bit back towards a medium level of content, although it depends which niche you're in. I mean, I just read an article the other day on Backlinko, Brian Dean, and his content's like super long, right? 3.5 to 5,000 words. So it really does depend on the niche, but I would say 2,000, 1.5 to 2,000 seems like a sweet spot for affiliate content. In terms of on-page SEO, again, we don't actually get involved in posting the article for affiliates. So whether they want to put 10 internal links and have 5 inbound links to it from internal pages, we just don't get involved in that. I've got my personal thoughts on it, obviously. We're heavily focused on producing high-quality content that is written well for humans, and for search engines alike, that answers the search intent and the query as best as possible, and feels trustworthy. That's our focus. We don't get heavily involved in the actual publishing of and then on-page SEO of the article beyond that, really.
Yeah, I love that you said writing for humans and the algorithms.
That's pretty much, we train writers. Like I always say, write for humans first, right?
Yes.
There's someone reading this and they need to enjoy the content. It needs to be easy to read, easy to kind of digest. It needs to answer their question, get to the point, no waffle. And then afterwards, our search engines, it doesn't build in, let's say, a decent keyword density. But I don't heavily focus on that, because generally if you've written well for humans, it will have a keyword
This is the strategy. I mean, this is the strategy that if you write well for human beings, more human beings are going to read it and share it. And then the algorithm is probably going to overwrite what is written, how it's written for SEO purposes, and say it's valuable anyway. So we're going to show it to more people. So if
I
you
mean, the
put
only time
humans
we
first,
struggle with that nowadays is with local SEO content, where someone's like trying to build in Brisbane and the suburbs of Brisbane. It's quite difficult to do that on a piece that's talking about plumbing.
With 200 words, just give me the answer.
Yeah, exactly. With affiliate content and most types of content, it shouldn't be that difficult. I mean, there's tools out there nowadays to analyze written content like Surfer SEO, which we do sometimes use. But our focus is just on producing great content that answers the query and answers it well.
Yeah, that's awesome. I want to ask you, sort of to wrap up, about your sites. And buying your sites as well. What were some of the biggest things that you learned, or the biggest takeaways that you got from buying the sites that you have bought? Because I think I'm just fascinated, because everybody's journey is very different, and the things that they pick up and take away from it is brilliant. And yeah, I love speaking to my clients after they've bought their sites and seeing like what they really took away, because what I take away sometimes is very different. So yeah, I'd be interested to hear.
Yeah, I mean, I guess the way I look at when I'm looking at an acquisition is I like to buy sites that are I've already got leverage in the industry, and so I can just there's clear synergies between this acquisition and what I'm currently doing, and so I can just immediately leverage up, and without having to change really anything on the site. So, because I am always nervous with acquisition and making changes. My initial thought is I want to put my own stamp on it and make it, change the theme and cull content, and I've got all these ideas. But having done this long enough now, if the site is heavily reliant on search engines, particularly Google, I think there's enough risk with just changing stuff that can make things go horribly wrong.
You see it happen all the time.
Exactly. So the less I can change on a website, the better. And then the more I can plug it into my existing portfolio and leverage up like that, is the better. So that's how I kind of look at acquisitions. Does it have great synergies, I guess, is the simple answer. And I mean, so just in terms of evaluating opportunities, I usually discount anything that I might look at it and be like, oh, that's a great business and so on, but it just doesn't have great synergies with what I'm doing.
It's a great way to minimize risk. When you've already own a site, buying something that is complementary, or we call it bolt-on if you're in the private equity space, exactly. is very good. But also, I want to touch on your point of like coming in and taking control of the ship. If you don't know where the reef and the rocks are, you can easily crash it, right? And I think there is a strategy that you can put in play when you do take over a site, and this is what I tell my clients, is that look at what's working, and if you can understand why it's working, leave it. And the things that you see that aren't working as well as you feel they could work, and on top of that you're very, very, very confident that you could optimize it to make it better, then go for it. But not just go, I think I can do this a little bit better this way, and then scrape the ship a bit.
I'm very much of that mindset, because I've been burnt a few times thinking I could completely change this website and for the better, and for some reason, which I still can't diagnose, it hasn't worked. In fact, it's done the opposite, and traffic's gone down or revenue's gone down.
Sorry, I cut you off on the last one there. You were about to say the other thing that you've learned about buying sites.
Yeah, so I mean, I guess I'm quite familiar with quite a few different business models that one could use an existing audience to monetize them with. So I'm familiar with drop shipping. I've got an FBA business as well. So if I might buy a business just because it plugs in well to our FBA business. So I'll look at a site and just see, are there other ways to monetize without having to change anything? So yeah, I guess that would be the main lesson that I've taken from buying sites. I would say I don't usually buy. I buy at the lower end of the market where I know I can add value quite quickly. Which maybe works well because I've been doing this for quite some time, whereas some of your audience who might be getting into this as a relatively new endeavor, buying a more established site is probably the best way to go. And obviously those are more expensive, but much lower risk.
Yeah, I love that you mentioned that because, well, it just tends to be a lower risk because it's a bigger ship, less can affect it. I love that you said that because a lot of people do want to jump in at a lower price range, and you can do that, but it's just understanding there is more energy, effort, time, money to be put into it to, get a good return out of it. Anyway, I think that's really good. Like I just want to mention to everybody, we talked about buying some sites. Don't go away, just buy a site. Make sure you do your due diligence. Go to my free resources tab on my site and do that first. We need to really put the disclaimer there that you need to know what you're doing before you buy these sites.
Yeah, definitely.
So, look, thanks so much. Really appreciate you coming on, Mark. And where can people find out more about you and what you're doing with Content-Elect and everything else?
Well, the best way to get in touch with us is to go to our website, which is Content-Elect, which is content and then elect as in intellect.
It'll be down in the show notes too.
Yeah, you can see what we're doing there. And yeah, if you're looking for content for your website, just reach out to us and we're always happy to have a chat.
Great. Thanks so much.
Yeah, thanks.
Thank you so much for everybody that is listening as well. Really do appreciate it. If you like this episode, please go away and leave a review of the podcast on iTunes and let us know actually some feedback is really important in business. Let us know what you actually liked about it so I can bring more awesome guests to the show like Mark as well. So thanks again, guys, and I'll speak to you on the next one.